Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ask for a moment of silence for the people in Florida and the people in Maui. Thank you. We'll move to item D, which is new business. Pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5, job performance of our electrical inspector, Jeffrey Valancourt.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a quick motion here. I request that the council consider my motion to file this item due to the facts surrounding this agenda item that pertain to our electrical inspector who cited the Washington County Fair with life safety violations. Violations that required corrections and reinspection for compliance, which they failed to correct before opening day at the fairgrounds. The complaints made are nothing more than a move to avoid compliance and circumvent safety. Therefore, again, my motion is to file this item.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, real quick, I'll just say that I'm gonna be voting against the motion because the item on the agenda is for his job performance in its entirety, not specifically to whatever violations were issued. So I'll be voting no, so we can continue discussion. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, then we can vote. How do you vote?
Aye.
Nay.
Refuse.
No.
Okay, so Karen Ellsworth, would you?
Excuse me, Mr. President, the
I didn't recognize you.
motion.
I didn't recognize you. So you say, Mr. President, then I say, go ahead. That's it. Otherwise, it's called interrupting.
Mr. President,
Yes.
the motion fails. So it's a moot issue to continue. It was a recusal and it's a 2-2.
The motion was to file, wasn't it?
Yes.
The motion failed, so it's not filed.
Right. So I was wondering if you could outline the complaint, because you do it best.
I can't, I'm gonna defer to the town administrator.
Okay.
Well, just for some context, in case people in the audience aren't aware, there was a similar meeting back in May, and the council voted to put Mr. Valancourt on probation of sorts. And so I did receive this complaint from the Washington County Fair. I also today received the second one in writing, and the council has received both of them. And the council decision.
Right. So go ahead.
Mr. President, one of them, I got ahead of time, the other one was just put before us today. And the name of the person or company and the sign name was blacked out.
Yeah, she or he asked that they be.
Well, Mr. President, it's in my view that their submittal of that could be a moot issue because there's no name, there's no signature. And I don't think we should consider that one.
Why?
Because I don't know who it's from. I don't know how legit it is. We haven't had a chance to call to verify it. And it was just put before us. just
Okay,
now.
but don't you bring documents in the day of and hand them out to people?
Yeah, but I'm not asking anybody to make a decision on it.
So we'll discuss the
complaint from the fairgrounds. The first issue was bullet point number 1. Within the first 3 minutes of our conversation, Jeff indicated he wanted the job of being a affairs electrician. When you're doing an inspection, you're not supposed to be promoting your business. That's an ethical violation.
So we don't really, Mr. President, we don't really know what was actually said. So I'm wondering if we could have Jeff respond to each of those accusations. I am really most concerned that they did not respond to the violations that they were given. And apparently didn't think they needed to.
Apparently, one particular response that I've received a whole lot of communication on regarding a dunk booth with a GFI concern. Apparently, there was a GFI panel box, and so they didn't need any other kind of thing, but it wasn't discussed between Jeff and the electrician on site.
So we're going to allow Jeff to go through this side of the story.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Do you need me to stand at the podium or can I sit here?
Whatever you're more comfortable with.
The, you know, the booklets and whatever else.
Mr.
Right.
President.
Yes.
Could I add something before? Just
Sure.
for, I think for efficiency, I just want to get all the complaints and issues up in the air. That way, Mr. Valencourt can be efficient and just let us know his reaction to everything. Since the item on the agenda is Jeffrey Valencourt's job description or job performance, I am sticking to that. And he has been notified that this is happening, obviously, because he's here. Just for the record. I think back to when we decided not to go with the recommendation of Karen Pinch and the response that he sent to his potential new manager. We all read that email where he said things like, how could you not hire me? How is there somebody out there better than me? And things like that. And we all agreed, well, maybe not we all agreed, but we discussed it at the table, hired him anyway. Within 2 months, we started receiving issues. We started receiving complaints. In early June, we had our first meeting regarding his behavior. And at that point, we heard from two local businesses. And we, or council majority, decided to put him on probation and let this behavior continue. The issue I have is not with the electrical outlets. It's not with the electricity. I really just, I respect what you do as an electrician because it's way over my head. The problem I have is all the complainants are complaining about the same thing. Difficulty scheduling appointments, showing up unannounced, attitude and demeanor, trying to make sales and business owners uncomfortable with those sales, or trying to sell his own business as an electrician. Stating they should have just hired him in the first place and they wouldn't have this problem. Giving advice on how he would have done something better or different, even though there's not a violation on that item. And I have so many thoughts on that last one. I spoke with the state electrical inspector and he put it in a great way where he told me that if somebody from the town is going into this business and saying it's not a violation, but here's how you can do it better. If they change that and then go by his recommendation and something goes horribly wrong, what kind of position does that put the town in? Like liability wise, it's not really good. It sounds really inappropriate to me. And I understand that we weren't there, right? We can only hear their side of the story. But how is it possible that we're having 3 businesses, possibly a 4th, coming forward and saying this? And these are just the formal complaints, never mind the conversations around town and everything like that. So as somebody who's looking to promote local business in town and trying to be their partner, we should have an electrical inspector who shows up when the job is done and says, yes, no, this is good, this is bad, and moves along. Isn't trying to sell his personal business, isn't trying to give them unsolicited advice, isn't the rude behavior. Is just the reason I voted no last time was because I couldn't get past what we had heard in the audio of Jeff saying to a person who he had trouble scheduling with, showed up when the business owner was there, didn't want to speak with her, would only speak with the husband, and then complained that he had issues scheduling and said, I'm too busy with customers, F that. Like, I just don't think that that's who we want representing the town as they're going places.
Excuse
And
me.
again, it's not about the
Order.
electricity itself.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Allow her to finish, you were like,
You can take the point of order if I did something wrong.
no.
Mr. President, I think she just mentioned some things that were sealed minutes in the executive session. So if that's the case, then it's fair game. These executive minutes, she just exposed them right now.
Mr.
So,
President,
as far as I'm concerned, there's an open meetings violation right here, right now.
I didn't mention executive minutes. If you'd like to file a complaint with me, I can send you the email to do so.
Absolutely.
No, but I didn't mention that they were sealed. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? I just mentioned that something had happened that we knew it. I never mentioned anything about where it was said.
We,
But anyway, I spent so much time on this past week, speaking with representatives from the Washington County Fair and 2 other businesses, state electrical inspectors. And I just feel like that behavior is not acceptable. And I'm going to ask the same question that I've had for a while. And that question is, under what circumstances is it okay to yell at a business owner like that? And honestly, that's the only question that I need answered. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, again, Mr. President, I wasn't finished speaking and she didn't address you, Mr.
I
President.
gave her the permission to speak and at first, and you were trying to interrupt with a point of order, but you're welcome
But
to
I
speak
waited,
now.
and but still, I wasn't finished, and she interjected all that in the last minute. But again, those were executive session discussions that she just brought forth, and I just think that's an open meetings violation right there. And again, if it's fair game that, you know what I mean, we're gonna talk about executive session minutes that were sealed. And I think as a council, we unseal those minutes and we discuss them.
I think we should, I think you said you want to read the whole thing. And then Jeff can respond to each one individually.
Since everybody else has commented, I want to comment, okay? I do medical inspections. I do inspections for the FDA. I do inspections for Joint Commission. I did an inspection just before I came here and I found violations. And the way I brought them about to the customer was in a far more diplomatic and cooperative way than our electrical inspector is doing his job according to the complaints. Now, of course, I wasn't there. But when you have a number of complaints and they all pretty much say the same thing, we obviously made a mistake. We chose somebody who's excellent as an electrician, technically highly skilled, but his interaction with the public leaves a lot to be desired, and it's really causing a problem. And that's what the issue is. It isn't a violation for a dunk tank or an outlet that's upside down or a piece of chafed wiring in the wall. What we're talking about is the way we work with people, the way we deal with people. And Jeff had an opportunity to have another executive session meeting today, but from what I gather, he chose to have a meeting, a public meeting with people to come and support him. And that's his prerogative as an employee. But my concern, and everybody knows what's on the sheet, Jeff knows, and everyone else knows the discussion on the sheet. And there's very few violations listed in this complaint. It's all demeanor and behavior. And that is the issue.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes.
The past inspector, not too long ago, that was the town administrator's handpicked. He was not qualified, and he actually didn't resubmit his application because he wasn't qualified. Then on top of that, Mr. Valancourt is on his way to the fair, and he got an email from the
Hold on.
secretary.
What's up?
The last electrical inspector was hired before I got here.
And
Then-
he retired, didn't he?
No, one of the inspectors, I didn't say electrical.
You did.
I didn't say
You said electrical.
inspector, one of the inspectors. Isn't qualified, he submitted his application. But anyway.
I had to cut you short because we're here to discuss the work record of Jeffrey Valancourt, not someone that I don't even know.
That was an opening to,
And
Mr. Valancourt got an email from the secretary stating that the fairgrounds had 15 or more open permits that went back a year or two. They were never closed, they were never re-inspected. So there was a lot of pressure on Mr. Valencourt when he went into the fairgrounds, knowing that all these open-ended permits, all right, were pulled and never closed off. And when he went down there, a lot of these open permits were not compliant and they weren't inspected and they continued to do the work. So it just seems like it's been kind of like a rolling thing with the fairgrounds where people have taken a blind eye, all right, to what they've been doing over there. And again, Mr. Valencourt wants to address every single one of these, and he has the opportunity to, and we requested an open session, so we're going to hear from Mr. Valencourt.
Again, my concern is behavior, not the violation. And the reason for this meeting is because of the behavior, not the violations. There's nothing in here. We're talking about a continued attitude or behavior that began back in May when we had the first complaint in the executive session to discuss that. And now we decided after a long discussion, a very long protracted meeting, that we would do a probationary period and hope that this kind of behavior didn't come up again. And now we have 2 complaints and possibly a third that that discuss this kind of behavior again. That's what the issue is all about. It's not about a citation, it's about behavior, it's about approach. Like I said, when I do a medical inspection, a JACO inspection, I did a mammography joint commissioning and ACR accreditation today, and you go to the people and you present it in a diplomatic way where you work together to solve the problem.
Well, Mr. President, I think it just goes right from the very beginning when Mr. Valencourt was appointed. Because right at the meeting, after we got out of the executive session, we came back into open session. Both you and Councilor Nisani said that it wasn't Sean Lacey's, he wasn't his first pick. And you know, you must go out and have a cup of coffee with him, get to know each other and whatnot. But the bottom line is, the way it's been in that office is that if it's not a hand-picked individual by somebody, then it doesn't fly. And Mr. Valencourt wasn't the hand-picked person of Mr. Nisani, of Sean Lacey. And that was actually brought out by Councilor Nisani. I've got the transcript of it, that he basically said you weren't Sean Lacey's pick. So right off the bat, all right, he didn't like Mr. Valencourt because it wasn't his pick, it wasn't his choice. It wasn't who he wanted up in that office. And it's not up to.
How long are you going to go on about?
One more second. It's not up to Mr. Lacey or any department head, all right, to say, this is my pick. Again, the town council, all right, the town charter hires and fires.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I find it hard to place blame on anybody else for Mr. Valencourt's actions.
I
They're
agree.
his actions, and everybody should take ownership for their own actions, regardless of what your boss may say to you. Like, sometimes your boss needs to give you constructive criticism. It's just a part of working. So if that happens, going to businesses, being difficult, not being able to show up, showing up on moving day of the Washington County Fair and complaining about cords on the ground, like, it's just also like trying to sell yourself, trying to say, if I was here, it would have been better. Like, those are the things that I can't seem to get over. And those are the things that I find a really hard time shifting the blame to somebody else.
It's behavior and the goal seems to be to change the narrative, to make it like we have a champion of safety here and we're trying to throw him under the bus because we didn't like his citations. That's not the issue at all. It's the behavior, it's the demeanor, it's the self-control.
Could we go through, let Mr.
Valencourt.
Valencourt respond to the items so that he can at least give his perspective.
Okay, I mean, I'm good with that. So, item number one. You have the sheet in front of you, right?
Number one.
Well, bullet point, they're not numbered, unfortunately.
Sheet is this.
Mr. President,
Complaint from the.
it may just be good just to overall explain why that behavior is acceptable and what makes yelling at a person obscenities. And what is okay about trying to sell yourself, buy products.
Okay, but I'm gonna
Like, I
start
think
with
we should
the,
keep to
the
that.
first item, how is it okay to try and, indicate that you would like to, the job of being the fair's electrician while you're performing an inspection? Yeah,
May I ask a few questions, Mr. President?
sure.
So are we here to discuss these complaints or every complaint that ever happened in the past with other sealed minute, executive session, this other incident that is water under the bridge? Are we going to relive that, or are we going to focus on this?
Okay, the reason we're here is because of the fairgrounds complaint. However, the reason that you're still on probation is because of the other complaints, and that needs to come into context so that people understand that we're not throwing somebody under the bus for one complaint.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to know. So.
I voted for you. I really wanted you to succeed.
And I think that you'll vote for me again after this meeting. I have faith. So let's see, in response to the Washington County Fair Inspection Process complaints submitted, please review my following. And I have some copies. Mr. Andy, Fairgrounds electrician, at our first meeting, 8/10, the Dan's Place final inspection. It did not indicate that I wanted this job or the job of the fair electrician. It is absurd. I would not do that, and it's untrue. I'd never encounter an electrician at his permitted job while I'm doing any type of inspection, and then tell him that I'm going to take his job or take his contract. When I spoke with him, we spoke briefly about the history of the fair and the history of myself being there and all the different aspects. I sat there and read the code book when I was 14 years old in my parents' booth. And I told them all about those different scenarios. Because when you get out into the field, first of all, I was there for the Dan's Place final inspection, not the fairgrounds inspection. The fairgrounds electrician wanted to meet with me. I didn't want to meet with him. I wasn't there to meet with him. I was there to meet with the Dan's Place electrician and or builder, their agent. He just happened to be there on the fairgrounds and wanted to converse with me to see what I'd be looking for, what my goals would be for inspecting the fair. And in my conversation, talking to him about how I grew up the fair and learning electric, I didn't give him the impression that I wanted to take over the fair. That was not my intention. We were just shop talking about various electrical items and the type of work that he's accustomed to and the type of work that I'm accustomed to. Because when you go out on a big project like this, you want the electrician to have a good feeling that I'm just not some kind of residential electrician, or I'm just an airport electrician. So we were talking about the different types of electrical work that was being done at the fair. I never asked the fair or solicited the fair for any contract or any work. So that's with that. During the same visit, I mentioned that I wanted to walk around and look at the fair's infrastructure. I disagree that it's more extensive than what the permit is pulled for. I have the permit, and the description of the permit says permit for Washington County Fair. Furthermore, there's an event permit attached with this.
Mhm.
And within the event permit, it says specifically code compliance. Written certification by the building official and or electrical inspector that the structures or electrical equipment comply with the building code. And that's not done yet. So I'm sure that Tony went there and looked at the structures in the buildings. And my purview is the electrical equipment for its safety. So from day one, when I was there, and that would be 8/10, I was there for inspection for the fairgrounds. I was there for inspection for Dan's place. And my encounter just so happens to meet and greet. Would anyone like to see the copies of those particular items? Because I have, and I made copies of them for you.
Yes, please.
I'll take whatever copies you mentioned, you're reading off your notes, I'll take that too, please.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask if Jeff would maybe give the rest of his copies at the end, because he may want to give copies of other things and it flows down to.
Mom,
I will do this.
actually, I only have one copy of the event permit,
Right.
but I actually knew you guys could roll them around because it's a document for the.
You did mention you have copies of your notes that you're reading to, or you're following along.
I
with
can
them.
give, I can give those to you when I'm done reading them.
Oh, I thought it was one for everybody.
Yeah.
And this is the electrical permit in the description. So again, I say that, you know, I'm there to do those two particular inspections.
Mark, can I ask Jeff a question?
Sure, certainly.
When you're talking about the event permit, Jeff, you mean the DBR permit?
Whatever the town gave, showed me, that is, sign off for code compliance.
You needed to sign off for the, carnival rides.
That is a totally separate issue.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Would you like to know more about the carnival?
No,
Okay,
I just wanted to know if that's what you were talking about.
very good. So as you can see that, oh, I don't know if you saw it yet. I'll just wait.
The permit is somewhat vague. Or open-ended, I guess would be a better term to use.
Which was stated that I was far exceeding what the permit.
I think it's when you went to the building on site and the Verizon van. but-
That's okay. Well, I will get to that with you. He stressed that he wanted to walk around to review the fair's electrical infrastructure, which was more extensive than what our permit was pulled for. I feel that he was trying to position himself to take over the job by learning more detailed information regarding the fair's electrical system. It is furthest from the truth because I'm there to inspect the electrical system. The only way that I'm going to know about it or look at it or understand it or study it is to go through it. And it's an antiquated electrical system.
No doubt.
On Thursday. Additionally, on Thursday, I offered to meet with him on Saturday or Sunday. Because he didn't refuse, but he didn't have time to walk with me on that particular day. Let's see. Yes, so the fact that I had not given written certification as the electrical inspector, this walkthrough request was justified. Mr. Andy declined my request at the time, claiming he was too busy at the moment, didn't have the time, and it would be better if I returned over the weekend, if I had worked on the weekend days. I told him I typically did not work on the weekends, but if he was there over the weekend and had time to give me a call, and I never heard from him. Mr. Andy stated that on Sunday, August 13th, which I don't think August 13th is Sunday, but that's beside the point. He saw me drive through the fairgrounds in an unmarked personal vehicle. That is false. He is mistaken.
13th is a Sunday.
I'll do my whereabouts on Sunday. Do
And
that for my record keeping on all my inspections, time that I spent there.
Mr. President, so that way, 40s in Cyberland,
Where are you?
on that Sunday that he claims you were there at the fair for hours.
Was not there. That's all that matters.
Well, this was handed to us, so it's public record now. He was at 2 Skunk Hill Road. Well, in the morning.
So he also states that he saw me while he was working in the second floor office. That would be the same main office, second floor, where they claim that no work has happened. And he basically states that while I was working within the upstairs office, upstairs of the main office, I saw him drive through.
Regarding the cell tower?
This has nothing to do with this.
No, I'm.
Jeff, just to, Mr. President,
Yes,
Jeff, just to kind of lighten it up a little bit, but just to let people know, you don't have a twin, right?
No.
Okay.
Although there was a gentleman that worked for me for years, and we were always. Here. I have a copy. Council, this is a copy. So dated on July 10th, 2023.
Mhm.
There is the building. I was told the second floor was previously permitted. I cannot find electrical permit for second floor. The air conditioning spoke of today is wired and active with no permit, and I cannot find either. So the second floor, no electrical permits, no electrical inspections. And FYI, the walls were just boarded up and the wiring was covered.
Oh, I'm not gonna.
That's
have one
fine.
Copy.
That's a
I
photo.
mean, I did pull the permits.
That's a photo.
Just so you know, I did pull them because of the public record. My concern is not really the permits. My concern is demeanor and attitude.
President, she didn't address you.
Oh, point of order. Sorry, Mr. President.
yes,
My concern isn't with the permits, because like I said, this is electrical, it's just over my head. I'm not an electrician. My concern is that I understand, it just sounds like like we're just running into a he said, where somebody's saying that you tried to get the job and you're saying you didn't. That could all just be handled by just simple miscommunication, because when I spoke
I'm gonna-
When I
Just one
spoke with the
second,
electrical
please.
inspector for the, not the electrician for the fair, he said that he was mentioning possible retirement. And that's what then prompted Jeff to ask and ask all these probing questions, ask for the job. So it's not like just shop talk. It was kind of prompted shop talk, I guess. I'd really just like to keep. I mean, my concern again is the behavior.
Jeff is addressing the complaints here, and then we can discuss behavior if necessary. But Jeff, if you would respond at that point, at this point.
So, Mr. Andy writes, he sent an email through the portal.
Yeah,
It was not an email, it was a comment. No notification was sent to me from this comment in the portal. However, when he asked me the question, I answered promptly.
what was the comment regarding?
The comment was asking if he could correct a violation by utilizing another violation. And I told him no.
Was this in regards to that building on the second floor?
Negative, actually, it goes to the Verizon truck you were asking about.
Okay, so can we move on to the Verizon truck?
Well, I'm going down the list. It's
Okay.
a Tuesday on the 15th. I was at the fairgrounds for Rockwell Amusements scheduled inspection. Rockwell Amusements pulled a permit approximately 2 months prior to the fair. And they called in advance, 2 weeks in advance to schedule my time there.
Right.
And they specifically asked for me to be there on 8:15.
Mhm.
And I noticed Mr. Andy at the main entrance. I drove to the main entrance. I parked. I waved at him. I was actually talking to the Rockwell Amusements people about what we were going to do today. Mr. Andy came over and asked and spoke with me. I asked him if I could do this fairground inspection today, if he's available. He was busy, hanging lights, doing whatever. I said, no problem. I got plenty of time with Rockwell. My vehicle was actually parked next to the Dizzy Dragon ride inside Rockwell Amusements Midway, where I asked them where would be the best place for me to park to stay out of your way. And that's where they directed me to. I didn't park in the front main gate for the whole time that I was there. And which was not too far from the Verizon truck.
Right.
Andy wrote that I was on site for 9 to 10 hours walking around. This is false.
Nine hours, 10 hours on site is a long, long time.
It would be if I was there.
Right.
Mr. President, Mr. Valencourt, how many hours were you there?
It's on my GPS at this end.
It's coming around. Be patient.
Just one other quick question. How many violations? did you-
Please. Seek. The
Want to make
president.
sure everybody sees the GPS report.
How many violations were there for Rockwell?
They had 6 corrections that they needed. Thereabouts.
And they corrected them all.
They did correct them all. They were prompt.
No phone calls to the town hall.
No. Not that I'm aware of.
None that I'm aware of either. So regarding the next issue, the Verizon truck, or the Verizon,
Yeah. Let's see, where am I? Would you look, it seems that you're interested in the Verizon.
the Verizon cell tower in the next item, because you were there 4.5 hours. And Andy said that you were there 9 hours. So 4.5 hours, we're okay. And you proved that with your cell phone tracking. So I'm hoping that we can kind of move along a little bit,
Yeah.
only because,
It's okay, I understand. There's a good amount to it.
right,
After our Thursday meeting, I sent him an email to the portal. I answered that. When he was with me, indicated he was not notified. I talked about that. Yep, I saw that. The Verizon cell phone tower had a non-compliant cord set. You have pictures of it, I'm assuming.
I remember seeing some pictures in an email that you sent to Karen.
So what I did was affix the stickers to the particular items. And then I entered it into the portal, and then I issued the field correction notice. And those are the particular
So this is.
articles. And, you know, this is a town provided product. Richmond, you know, you're one, you know,
Oh,
I know here.
was the cell phone, I mean, was the Verizon truck part of the purview of the inspection permit?
Absolutely.
And were they able to correct it?
You know, the town is supposed to be called, the inspector is supposed to be called to go up there and do the inspection. They never called. Never provided the information as to what they did, what they didn't. So, did they correct it? The inspector didn't view it.
So we're not sure whether they corrected or not.
If they made a correction, I could not tell you if they made a proper correction, because I did not view the inspection. Just like the dunk tank, Mr. President. My concern was not the GFI.
I saw the photo that you sent with, there was a cable without a clamp on it. That was what I noticed in the
Correct.
photo.
If we're gonna get into the real details of the electrical article and such, I can, but I'm not.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of electrical inspections because again, it's the behavior issues that we're trying to talk about.
That's fine, and I understand. What I'm providing to you is that
It looks like there's a number of holes in the complaint.
I can make plenty more with all the time allowed.
Okay.
Mr. President, you mentioned the dunk tank, Mr. Valencourt. The dunk tank, I presume from reading your violation, it wasn't grounded. Not being grounded, what would the outcome could have been in a worst case scenario, not being grounded?
Okay, so I'm gonna clarify this because many people make a mistake by intermixing the terminology bonding and grounding. That dunk tank was not bonded according to code. I listed that on my field reports,
I did see that.
Article 525.3D. Shall comply with Article 680.
Was that corrected?
No. It was not corrected. And it was not corrected because I was not going to live through another on-site episode with the permit pullers and everything. I took your direction. And the directions, I go out there and inspect. I mark my tags. I did 3 things to indicate it. I marked the tags. I left the correction notice. And I put it in the portal.
Did you talk to the on-site electrician?
Nowhere to be found. He never called for an inspection. And I do have it right in here that it says that it's up to the permit puller or the property agent to call. It's their duty.
The call once they've made the correction.
to call for the inspection.
Okay.
I was only there for the Rockwell Amusements inspection. I was asking if they were ready by, you're in the same room with me and I know that you need your inspection. And I was totally ignored and totally bypassed as far as I'm too busy right now. And not only did, like it was said, that this is the most busiest day, it's the most unopportune day, they should have called earlier. But the person that had 2 weeks to set up all that electrical equipment, when they arrived on site, were ready on the 15th. Right now, it starts 365 days to become compliant again. They had 365 days to be compliant.
Right.
It's part of the inspection process. It's almost one of the most important time-consuming items. That's the article. And that's the item right there that I really wanted to get into, and I was avoided from doing so. Article 110.3 indicates that equipment shall be listed, labeled, both identified, and shall be installed and used in accordance with any instructions, including the listing, labeling, and identification.
And this wasn't done?
This was not done because I was avoided from being able to do it. And I could not go around that whole fairgrounds myself without an electrician with me that knows the fairgrounds so that they can indicate where all these items are. We can test them together, witness them, and then make corrections.
Did you? Look at this?
It'd be nice if we could have our own copies for like a
Well, I don't,
normal view, because it's gonna,
I'm sorry.
no, I just, one copy to share 5 ways. With everything we received only one copy, so it's like you get a quick glance when you pass it along.
Sorry.
didn't
Sorry.
get one. Yeah.
Just a quick question for you, Jeff. In this whole process of, you not wanting to get into the same situation as the first go around, it doesn't seem there were any words. There was no vulgarities. There was no tempers flaring. So
Negative.
negative. So the reason why too, you didn't go back and re-inspect was because there was a town hall director, you not to go back there.
So the way to lay it out is I got a telephone call at approximately 2 p.m. on the 16th. And I was asked how it was going down there.
And who was this? Excuse me, Mr. President. Who was this?
This was Karen Pinch. She had called me and she said, how's it going down there? And I asked, where? And she said, at the fairgrounds. I believe that she was under the impression that I was there. And I said, I don't know, I'm not at the fairgrounds. She said, not at the fairgrounds today? I says, no, I was there earlier. And I was there under the request of Rockwell Amusements, a permit holder there. They had an issue going on with their equipment, and I went down there and took care of it with them, advised them, whatever the situation was. And I happened to come across one of the, after I took care of that, I came across one of the fair,
Mechanics?
the higher up in the fair organization that I was introduced to briefly. So I recognized the gentleman. And then I interacted with him and wanted to make sure that he saw that there was a few. First, I asked him if his electrician was around. He said, no, he's not here yet. I said, oh, okay. I said, I have these notices right here. I would like them corrected and have him call me.
Right.
And he said, what's one of them over here? And I showed him the cord set. And he said, well, that's used everywhere else. There was a conversation. I said, well, that's fine and dandy. Wherever it is used before, it can't be used here. It doesn't comply.
Right.
And he says, well, we can't disconnect the electricity from it. And the Verizon electricians took care of it and everything else. I said, whoa. I said, I want to be really clear with you. I'm not asking you to disconnect electricity from it. I said, by right, it shouldn't have any electricity connected to it because I didn't authorize it.
Right.
Now, says right in manual here that no equipment shall be energized without.
Right,
Is-
same as with the hospital, if I put in a piece of equipment, I'm not allowed to turn it on until I get the electrical inspection.
Correct. And, you know, this gentleman was nice, but he kind of disregarded everything I had to say to a degree, like it wasn't his matter, but it was his matter, because he's the agent.
Right.
He employs the electrician.
But it sounds like Rockwell scheduled you,
Yes, they
they
did.
made themselves available to you, and they took whatever you said and addressed it, and there was no problem.
Yes.
And it sounds like so far that the fairgrounds,
My length of time here for 15, 20
it
minutes.
sounds like the fairgrounds did not contact you until opening day.
They did not contact me on opening day.
So they never contacted you.
That is correct.
Mr. President,
Yeah,
are we gonna have the opportunity to hear from the fair?
I'm not
They're
sure.
here,
Yeah, they are. You two gentlemen are from, okay,
but
so,
also maybe like to request, we have Tony's time as well. Maybe we could hear from him if he has anything to say.
yeah, I would
We have a,
like to hear from Tony. I wanted to go a few more minutes into this, and then I wanted to,
thank you.
Yeah, I'd
Yes,
like to have him finish the rest of the.
right,
So I'm going to show you, well, we have a conversation that took place with another gentleman. I'm all done with speaking of Andy, but there's a Sean that Andy had passed me off to take a tour if I wanted to of the fairgrounds, while he was too busy to work with me at the moment. Now, like I said, I learned my lesson as far as working with non-electricians,
Mhm.
because it can become combative.
Right.
So so I agreed to go with him, and he offered me the use of a golf cart solely. He said, take any one of the golf carts and drive around, take a look at anything you want. And I declined it. I did not want anything to do with that. So he drove me, excuse me?
why?
I don't want to be blamed and sitting in front of the man saying I was racing around, acting whatever, hitting anyone.
Okay,
I don't think it would be appropriate.
okay.
Mr. President, ask a question.
I
I just wanted to ask a question on what he just said.
sure, go ahead.
Why would somebody assume you were racing around?
No.
Why would that be the assumption? I don't want to take a golf cart because somebody's gonna assume I'm racing around. I don't want to take the golf.
I
cart.
just don't
Cart,
want
so I don't want to hit
golf
something
cart.
and then be the eye-hole of the town.
I don't want to be liable.
Right, so why
Golf
would
carts.
somebody assume that you would do that?
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Please,
Just think.
thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. So the first place I asked Sean was to view the main office based on that last building permit
Right,
that you had given me, that I had given you.
right,
Because Susan verbally and in writing sent me an open permit list. And I was asked we were all asked to look at it. Tony, Josh, and myself. This is the open list. This is
just
the
gonna
email,
ask for that.
and that's the open list.
President, that's the open list of permits that they're going on at the fairgrounds and that are still open and they go back a few years.
I'm looking, I'm not seeing dates, but it says permit job 2020, they go back to 2022.
I believe if you read the email, I think she only sent the 2022 one.
Right,
With something along the lines of all the other open ones from years ago, we're gonna.
who is Kenneth Bosquet? He's got a lot of them open.
Mr. President, just one quick question, if I may. Jeff, I'm trying to understand the dump tank. if you put a violation tag on that dunk tank and they didn't correct the violation and they actually used it during the whole length, and I think it was the Chargers from Chariho that have that dunk tank. The worst case scenario, not being bonded, somebody could have gotten electrocuted.
That is a fact.
How,
And
and
if I,
how does that have happened? Because I do know about bonding and grounding.
So,
Thank you.
President, there was a second part to that question. So if there was a 8-year-old kid that ended up getting dumped, in worst case scenario, he gets into the water and it's electrified. I think, because I looked it up, he loses all muscle control. That child breathing would fall to the bottom of the tank. Then you could have a 25-year-old seeing that the kid is in distress. He jumps into the tank. What's going to happen to that person that's going to jump into
it's
the
a
tank?
dominoes effect, and that's what the safety bonding is for.
Is this for, this is yours, correct?
Well, I don't know, is it?
I just was reading what bond, about
Yeah.
the bonding thing.
Yeah,
It makes it safer.
it makes, the touch potential, dissipate. All I can tell you is that it's a requirement.
Right.
Code
Well,
compliance requirement, it's a life safety issue. And people who go to rescue people that are paralyzed from this, they themselves can become paralyzed. It's a fact. It's a fact. So if in fact a kid looked like they were drowning, they may not know why, and they go there, and they did thousands of reports. I couldn't print you out enough.
I saw a bunch on Facebook that you posted.
And
I see them.
Mr. President,
We need to move on.
So the next thing you asked is about,
one other quick.
No,
Go ahead.
the next thing you asked for, it just says compliance with the rules and regs. It says all electrical work covered in this chapter, which is done in the state of Rhode Island city requirements, having rules shall be done in accordance with those rules and requirements. Failure of any licensee to do that work in the manner, or his or her failure or refusal to correct the work with reasonable promptness after notification by the local inspection or enforcement authorities, where the notice is required by law when reported to the Division of Professional Regulation, shall be grounds for suspension or revocation of their license. And this is the discretion of the division of, after proper notice and hearing, or and after the recommendation of the Board of Electricians and Labor Training. And also, it says that no person or firm or corporation shall enter into, engage, or solicit, advertise, bid, or do work for in the business of installing wires, conduits, apparatus, fixtures, electrical signs, the whole thing.
so there was unlicensed work being done on premises. Unlicensed,
Sean,
unpermitted.
Sean, I can see where the uncomfortableness came about during the first moments of my inspection with Sean McGurky. I don't know, but whatever, Mr. Sean. I can see where his uncomfortableness would come from, because I was asked to look at the air conditioning specifically. And when he provided and showed that to me, I said, "Oh," he said, "that was done 7 years ago." And I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "That's interesting." I said, "But that looks like a brand new unit. It's date coded."
Yeah,
He said, "Well, it is a brand new unit. I just did, the wiring was done 7 years ago, but I just installed it." I said, "Well, who wired it who wired it?" And he said, "Well, I wired it up to the building." And I said, "Oh," I said,
this one.
are you a licensed electrician?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, from what I remember," I said, "that's not allowed." But I said, the codes and regulations could change. My exact words were, the regulations may have changed in the past few years and I'm not aware of it. What I'll do is I'll look it up. And, if I'm wrong or you're right, or I'm right and you're wrong, I'll just give you the information
Right.
and we'll learn together. And that was it. But as far as I'm concerned, it was pretty, it was uneasy at that point with that
Right.
gentleman. Because
Okay, so he's here and he wanted to respond, so I was gonna ask if you take a.
First of all, I
Point of
didn't
order.
wire the unit.
Mr. President, I just want to say, if you could, because he's closer to the podium, I don't know if it's necessary to go to the podium, that way the speaker can hear you online. You know what I mean?
I can get him, yep,
You can get him? All right.
I just need to.
Sorry, I just want to make sure you were heard.
The only thing I wanted to speak of on
I just need
that,
his name.
Sean McRory. What I wanted to speak on that, he asked me if I had wired it. I did not wire it. He asked who pulled the electrical permit. The service disconnect was installed on the original electrical permit for the building. When the entire building was built, all of the electrical work was done at one time. We didn't sheet rock it. The second floor was never finished. It was sealed off, but to get the fire code done, to get all the fire suppression systems corrected, all of the electrical work was completely done, including a service disconnect for a future air conditioning unit for the second floor.
Okay,
So
so who connected up the air conditioner?
from the service disconnect to the air conditioner was done by the HVAC tech that pulled the permit. As per HVAC code, from the anything after the disconnect is purview of the HVAC tech.
Okay, thank you. Sean, sorry, Jeff, would you respond to that?
Yeah, so per the licensing board, which would be Joseph Walsh, in conferring with him, that's an incorrect statement on the wiring. And as far as, what was the rest of it? I'm sorry. All I care, about timeline is that there was no HVAC permit pulled at the time that I stood there. It was wired and installed and being utilized. There was
And-
no HVAC permit.
But Sean had stated that the HVAC technician did pull a permit.
Yes, he had pulled there is a permit pulled for the unit.
Was it pulled after he?
To the
inspected
best of my knowledge, I don't personally have it in front of me, the best of my knowledge, and I can go out and call the person who pulled it, because he pulled it on your online portal as far as I believe.
it? Right. Is there any kind of
But
record?
the unit was never called for a final inspection because it is running, but it is not final complete or missing a few pieces to it.
Right,
And we hired an HVAC company to do this. We didn't do it ourselves.
right. And the you relied on the HVAC people to pull permits and you're not sure whether they did or not.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. President, so.
I really don't I want to get Jeff's response to all of this. I don't want preset questions, pre-prepared questions asked and pre-prepared answers given. I'm trying to get through this so that we can move on.
There's no prepared questions and comments there, Mr. President. That's your opinion on that. You make
Perhaps.
note in the minutes, please.
Right, so going to the third section of the complaint, the Pete Fish.
Mhm. I slightly touched on
Comments.
that.
I had two main concerns. The last three bullet points, and it says, my concern was that he was there for a 9-hour inspection on Tuesday, 8/14, which should have occurred on the weekend for the issue to be addressed. The Verizon truck travels throughout New England, blah, blah, blah. And, you've got the complaint in front of you. I was wondering if you could address the whole timing of all of this.
Absolutely. Let me spin back to. I was not there for a 9-hour inspection on Tuesday, the 14th.
Was that the day you were there for 4.5 hours?
4 hours and 40 some odd minutes.
Okay.
It says, my concern with this is that he was there for a 9-hour inspection, which should have occurred on the weekend, which. Mm-mm. The Verizon truck travels throughout New England, he uses the same hookup everywhere. No, that's, I can't pass a violation like that. Cited, if I
Right,
see it, I call it.
right.
My concern is this could have been addressed long before the opening day, but it was decided to put a violation on it, notice, well, it was actually talked about on, I believe, the first day that I was there, which was the 10th. That was the first thing I saw on my walk out.
Right.
And
And
I
you
let
brought
you
it
know-
to some, whose attention did you bring it
Brought it
to?
to Andy's attention because he was right there near me, brought it to his attention. He entered into the portal as a question, which I didn't get a notification of, asking if he could correct a violation with a violation. When I saw him personally, I told him, no, you cannot.
Is Andy here?
And he said, okay, we'll get a rubber cord on that. So that correction or that notification, it didn't, opening day, it still wasn't completed. So whatever Andy was working on, should not have been more important than exactly what I told him was important.
It just
Correct.
seems to me in this lengthy discussion of this, that communication in both directions was horrible.
Well, I am always available by phone. If you ask any of the people in the building department, I'll show you my company email. I answer my emails almost immediately. And as of even last night, I got a telephone call from a contractor at 7:45 looking for an inspection this morning. And I did it.
Right.
So I am always available by emails. My permits, if you look at the permits, when I received them, as a matter of fact, this particular permit for the fairgrounds, it was commented to me by Andy. I couldn't believe that anybody, I put my permit in at like 8:30 at night and you approved it 10 minutes later. I can't believe, and this was on a Saturday or a Sunday that he put his permit in.
Right.
I said, that's, trying to do a great job, whatever. That's what I'm trying to do. So,
Mr. President, could we hear if Tony has anything to say, just because he's here? I don't know if you do have a chance to say anything, just want to make sure we have a chance to hear from everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm done for.
Yeah, I know.
My own-
We haven't also touched on the other complaint that was received. And I just feel like that one should be addressed as well.
Which
Because
complaint?
that's not an agenda item.
It's not an
The
agenda item, and I'm
notification
gonna
of it.
just keep
The
it.
agenda says the job performance of
Right.
Jeffrey Valencourt, so I think as long as we stick to that agenda item, because all due respect,
Not posted.
neither
But
was
it's-
Clay Johnson.
At this point, I just want to focus on these things here. Thank you.
You like one of these, Rich?
No, thank you.
Record if you're making.
Yeah. You can.
President, one quick comment.
Sure.
When we talk about bad communication, there was Rockwell Entertainment right on the same property, obviously, as the fair. The communication between them went down without a hitch. So you've got two entities, basically Siamese twins to one another. One has no problem, but then the other one does. And there's no miscommunication with Rockwell, because it just seems like they're a very professional organization. They know how the game is played, so they have to get their permits in way ahead of time. And
Point of order, I'm so sorry, Mr. Valencourt, I can't hear you, I'm listening to.
There's a
Mr.
phone
Valenti.
ringing, Mike's talking, you're talking, just, if you could just hold on for a minute.
I'm just saying that the communication, you get Siamese twins side by side, no miscommunications with Rockwell, no problems, no phone calls to the town hall. Rockwell operates all over the country. They know what's expected of them. They're not trying to cut any corners because of liability issues and whatnot. It's very professional. And when I see the stark difference between how Rockwell runs their organization and what the fair has been trying to get away with, then I do, yes, draw a line.
Okay, I
Professional,
gotta
non-professional.
hold you at that. So I would say that saying that the fair is trying to get away with something is not an accurate thing. I'm gonna ask, please.
Yeah, my name is Clyde Pete Fish. I'm the chairman of Washington County Fair.
Right.
I've been chairman for 25 years.
Right.
To say the fair is trying to get away with something, I think is unfair. The fair has, let's address some things. The fair has pulled permits throughout the thing. We built the office, we're talking about the office. We built the office in 1997. We hired a contractor to build the office, who pulled electrical permits, building permits. All those permits were pulled, the inspections were done, okay, by the town of Richmond. All what we did was, we went to the building inspector, we asked for a permit to finish the office. In 1997, we didn't have the money to finish the office. I think it was 97, don't do 97. Oh, not 1997, 2017, I'm sorry.
Right.
And so we wanted to sheetrock it and we wanted to insulate it. We hired an air conditioning person to put the air conditioning upstairs. He came, he was supposedly to pull the permit online. Whether he did or not, I'm not privy to that. I don't know that. He told me he did. I assume he did. The building inspector came out and approved all that. All the electrical was done in 2017. The town came out and inspected it. They gave us a CO. We were allowed to use the building. So the other thing is, you know, we have food booths, we have different booths. Those booths pull their own permits to get inspected when they do work on that. We don't own those buildings. Any building we do work on, we pull a permit for. Now you say you have all these open permits. The town has come out every year and inspected the Washington County Fair. They have never given us any written violations. We've never had a written violation that we were out of code or not passable. So how is that possible? We have all these open permits when we pulled permits and they come out and inspect us every year. I don't understand that. The other thing I have is, as far as things this year, I was made aware of the Verizon truck issue Wednesday morning. We called Verizon, it was fixed Thursday morning. The Cheraho Cowboys did not open Wednesday. As far as I was aware, our electrician handled that and it opened on Thursday. So we didn't bypass anything. We didn't not correct anything. Okay, it was made aware. Now, whether they came out and back inspected, that's on our electrician. But I want you to know that the Washington County Fair did not form a complaint because we're trying to avoid things. So we're not trying to.
Yeah, I don't think there was, I don't think that there was any nefarious intent on anybody's part. What I think is that we had horrible communication. Absolutely horrible communication. And it's incumbent that both the fair and the town work together because this is a cooperative effort. And throwing accusations, blaming people, calling someone to task for a nefarious intent isn't acceptable. We're to work together to come to a common solution within the framework of what the specifications and requirements are. So, Jeff?
I'm not pointing the finger at the fair doing anything nefarious. All I'm pointing to is the facts of what's being put forth to me. Make your own conclusions about that.
Okay.
Here is something that I just want to speak of too, because if you're doing my job performance in that fashion, one of my duties, of course, as it says right here, is to enforce the electrical code, issue correction notices, to ensure the work complies with the state electrical code, maintains records, which you can see I do, issues certificates and permits. And my peripheral duties is to explain and interpret and provide guidance regarding applicable codes within the area of responsibility to the architects, engineers, contractors, developers, and other interested parties. So part of my job over there, when I'm reviewing the fairgrounds, there's a number of electrical stub ups coming throughout the whole fairgrounds.
Mhm.
And a lot of times the fair itself utilizes these things sporadically, or they install them permanently, and they don't safeguard them from tripping hazards or use. So, for an example, in my conversation with Sean, I explained to him how the merry-go-round that was in front of the office space was actually rebuilt over at my shop, and that we did the wiring. And I
Right.
was surprised to hear that the fairgrounds doesn't have free phase. And I was made aware of that because I got called about 2 or 3 years ago when that merry-go-round went to that job site. I got called by Rockwell. And Rockwell actually asked me, you have a 3-phase generator that's small. He said, all of my large equipment is being utilized just for a 1 merry-go-round. And I said, well, yeah, I got a 25 kW, it's right up the road. I said, you're welcome to it anytime you want. And what they did is they actually handled it on their own somehow, doing a phase converter and all this other stuff that may be over some people's heads. But they had actually called me and I was explaining to them how to provide guidance regarding the fairgrounds and future work, and if they're going to be changing anything, to have me involved as the electrical inspector to help them through the process to be compliant to the fairgrounds type of code articles. And I said, furthermore, if you ever need anything, as far as a blown fuse or any type of equipment, I know you have a bunch of lake
Now, this
houses
is
here.
a conversation with Rockwell or the fairground?
Go on.
Okay,
Yeah, and Rockwell does the same thing with me everywhere else. And many people do. And as a matter of fact, you can see by that letter right there that I just handed you.
right.
I offer as Jeff Valancourt to help people. The fairgrounds has particular components at the fair that may not be able to obtain during volume times. Who has the 300 amp fuse?
Nobody.
Size K. They might have some, but they might not have. And I got a plethora of them, and they're about a mile up the road.
Right.
I didn't offer any type of services for money. As a matter of fact, it would be really nice to be a sponsor there. But it just seems like now it's a mute situation. I have no problem being a sponsor there. I have no problem letting anybody have free advice or work from me. As a matter of fact, the town itself was inquiring how much to load bank this building so that we could figure out what size generator we need and how much we could charge us.
I don't want to get off on
I'm just telling you.
Okay.
I'm just telling you.
And I appreciate that, and I do know about that
Yes,
load balancing and the generator and so on.
I'm extremely, and I can't say the word, philanthropic with my philanthropic with my education and whatever equipment that I have.
Right.
That's all.
Sean,
That's just the way I am.
Mr. President.
Sean, do you feel that Jeff was trying to hang you guys? Or do you feel that there was miscommunication?
I can tell you that there were discussions brought up that I've worked with a lot of inspectors that I was not 100% comfortable with at the time. That's what I can tell you.
Right.
There were things brought up. I worked with many state inspectors on a daily basis of what I do for a living. And the way certain things were brought up, there was never anything said directly, but the way certain things were brought up made me uncomfortable with, if I were involved, I could have this for you. And it was like a string, carrot and a string trying to pull me along. And I'm not comfortable with that. Personally, maybe I misconstrued the entire thing, but I've never felt that way with any inspector.
Perception is reality. So that's, if you perceive that, that's your reality. If Jeff perceived what he was doing, it's his reality. So I wanted to also. Go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of move us along in a way where we can wrap things up, because we have about 10 minutes till another meeting's coming in.
Right.
And considering that we didn't get to fully complete this conversation, I'd like to make a motion to reschedule discussion, because we can fully discuss all the complaints, everything that's happening, and continue to hear from Valancourt and the fair and everybody else.
Right. I understand your point. Jeff, go ahead.
I brought with me
You gotta
today.
finish the thought.
I believe there's 2 people here today, and I could be mistaken in the audience, that I brought as evidence as I can to circumstantial situations that apply to this. And
I don't think, because they're not on
that's fine.
the and I also, the picture that I have already, I think is pretty accurate.
Okay.
And I was gonna ask if you could speak to any of the points that have.
You can ask me whatever you'd like.
Um,
I'll try to answer.
Just, you've heard what we've discussed for the last hour and a half, and wondered if you had any input regarding this.
We did get complaints from the fair regarding Jeff, that he was, you see in the letter, I mean, I wasn't there,
Right,
it's hearsay. I wasn't there, so I can't elaborate any of the stories, regarding what's going on. So that's,
okay,
I'm not saying he didn't do it or he did do it,
right. Yeah, I mean,
but we did get a lot of people
So-
complaining about it.
here, and I could be all wrong here, but this is what I've gleaned so far. First of all, I've stated many times, the communication has been horrible in both directions, in my opinion. Come on, guys. The communication's been horrible in my opinion. The second point that's very obvious to me is the fairground infrastructure is probably insufficient for today's standards and today's requirements. I've worked in old hospitals. I only have to parallel things with what I do. It's not that I'm going on a long tirade here, but I've worked in old hospitals where they want you to connect up an X-ray, a three-phase X-ray system to a single-phase connection or something like that. And I get the whole thing. But I think maybe it's time that the fairgrounds did a comprehensive review of what they need to do to if you don't have three-phase, if you don't have certain things completed, if there are these, I don't know, there's 48 open permits, we need to figure out why these permits are still open and close them. Sean, go ahead.
Most of those permits are with private food booths, not with us. 99% of them.
Okay.
We don't know, because the name you mentioned with a bunch of them has nothing to do with us.
Right,
But
half
also,
of,
Mr. President, is the open,
Three-phase has nothing to do with what the fair necessarily needs. That's just a way to get power.
right, but it's a power requirement of some of the things that are coming on.
That was for one ride for Rockwell for a
that's
temporary event,
Rockwell.
and we put a
Not
face
us.
cover in. And we upgrade an incredible amount every year.
Right,
President, can I ask a question of our expert? The infrastructure there. I saw pictures of rodent riddled boxes with circuit breakers, no cover, blocking the wires that everybody at home, when you open up your box, there's a cover so you don't touch the contacts. There was a picture there with no cover, so anybody could have just put their hand in there and touch the wires.
So I cited only 3 of the most erroneous life safety items on site.
right,
Only 3. The amount of items that I could have based on the code and based on the event permit requirement. I could have spent 2 days there walking around and writing them up. And I was not going to do that. As you know, I already went through a process of being overboard, let's say, as it would be, or going too far to the T, let's just say, as far as citing someone, and I didn't. But everything that there is a problem there is still there. So, it could be worth a walk over at some point. It could be worth, at the time that that event permit takes place, that Tony and myself and Josh go there as a team and walk around prior to signing off. on
and
it.
Sean and
And Sean, of
and,
course.
you know,
No.
the
Correct.
I guess this all happening on opening day of the fair, when the principals of the fair were overwhelmed with the opening day of the fair, which they would and should be. And the fact that it wasn't scheduled earlier. All of these things could have been avoided with good communication and a spirit of cooperation. And
I'm not the one-
I like the fair. I'm incredibly happy that the fair is in our town. I don't want them to go away. I don't want them to be shut down or whatever. I want them to thrive. I want the town to thrive. And I want our town inspectors to be part of that.
Mr. President, I agree with you 100%. I think what ended up happening, the frustration and, being in business myself, you got a big catering job, we used to wait on 1,000 people each day on a Saturday and Sunday. The VIP tent down at the air show, so I know what it is to have the pressure on. So I'm looking at it like you folks had the pressure on you to get opened up, everything going on all at once, I understand that. But it does not excuse you guys, all right, from not making these corrections done ahead of time. But again, I understand you guys are under pressure and whatnot, and maybe you're gonna view things a little bit different when somebody approaches you that has the authority. Because look, any inspector that comes, everybody gets always a little apprehensive anyway when an inspector shows up. Your blood pressure, if you would have put a, collar on,
Just
everybody's blood pressure would go up just a little bit. They could walk over to you with a little child, their child, and your blood pressure will still go up a little bit. So with that being said, we understand. I understand your apprehension and what you're going through, all right, the day that the fair is gonna open, there's so much on you. I agree with that 100%. And I think it's a great idea that the 3 inspectors, all right, Josh, Tony, and Jeff, get together with you well in advance before we issue any permits next year. And I would like that to be done for sure.
So here's my proposal, but I want to ask, before I make my proposal, I'd like to hear what.
Yeah,
you
I
have to
just want to
say.
say one thing on that again. Again, we only had 2 violations we were made aware of. The Verizon truck and the Dunkin' tank. Both were corrected, okay? So to sit here and say the fair has all these violations that we have never gotten in right, that we have made major strides to correct our infrastructure over the years, spent $500,000.
Right.
To sit here and say we have all these violations that no one has
I
ever
don't think
cited us
that,
with.
I don't think that was.
He just said he could spend 3 hours there citing violations.
Well,
To
that,
sit here and
that
say,
wasn't me speaking.
and we, the only thing that we had different was Dan's place, which he inspected. But to sit here and say we have all these violations and all this infrastructure problem, I think it is unfair. I mean, we have been inspected every year by the town of Richmond. The electrical inspector, the plumbing inspector, the building inspector. We have never had a violation that I'm aware of that either A, wasn't corrected easily, or B, that we ever got. And we still don't have any in writing. We have never gotten any violations in writing. And the ones we were made aware of, we corrected. I just want to alliterate that on the record. We have never had any major infrastructure violation.
So,
Mr. President,
yes,
I just wanted to reiterate that it's really just becoming he said, we're being told that no offers were made for appointments, to come out and inspect, but in the complaint, it says I offered to meet with him on Saturday or Sunday. And I understand that, schedules are what they are. But also, I just feel like there's so much more to unpack, and we literally have 2 more minutes before a workshop comes in, that this needs to be continued to later in the month please don't interrupt me. It needs to be continued to later in the month so we can fully explore the entirety of the job performance. That's
okay.
just how I
So
feel.
this is what I'd like to propose, because I always like to try and find a way to get everybody to work together. So I have a list here of 48 permits that need to be rectified. So I would like to task our inspectors with working with the fairgrounds in the next 30 days to sit down and clean up these permits.
Point of order. I just have a question. Are we allowed to make action on something that's not on the agenda? Because the fairgrounds permits are not on the agenda.
I'm making a proposal.
Oh.
Making a suggestion.
making-
Okay.
Right, so I'm making, my proposal is, first of all, that we continue this 31 days from now. So we continue this. Just,
No, I just want to say, like, maybe not right down to the T, because we got scheduling, get us a full 5
well,
minutes.
but the next regular meeting after the 30 days is up. And what I'd like, if we could, is we could get all the inspectors and the principals of the fairground to get together, work through these open permits, work through any other issues, come up with a plan of action, and then revisit this whole job performance thing at the next regularly scheduled meeting. Does that sound like a good idea?
Mr. President, I think, Jeff is, one of the major parties in this. And I think you want this resolved now, right?
It's very stressful. It's honestly, it's very stressful for, hanging in the balance the way that it is. Basically, when I'm being told I was there for 9 hours, I can show you I was. When I tell you that someone called and someone didn't, I can show you the documentation. I can show you the documentation on every item here.
Right.
And I'm telling you right now, my demeanor, my professionalism, my accommodatingness to these people and every person that I've encountered has been
Okay.
as much as I can.
I'm not, at this point, what I'm doing is trying to propose a solution that will be beneficial to the town and the fairgrounds. And I'm wondering if the two gentlemen from the fairgrounds, do you think that something like this would work?
The biggest issue is most of those permits aren't ours.
Right.
How do we clean up permits that have nothing to do with us?
Well, that would be determined and we would cancel them out at that point. It's like, there's 48 open permits and 20 of them are from, you said a food,
Private food booths.
right, that are no longer there.
No, they're still there, but we didn't pull the permits. They just have to be pulled on our property, but the
Right.
buildings are owned by those people.
Well, that would be our.
Which is something the town requested 3 years ago or 4 or 5 years ago,
Right,
was that each food booth pull their own permit. So
Right.
we're following the town's guidelines, these people pull their own permits. Why they're
Right.
open, I don't know. I have no idea.
We can clean up anything that pertains to us.
right. And then the town can work with these food booths to either shut them down or get them to,
Right, you'll have to go out, they'll all have to be re-inspected. To make sure they meet code and close them out.
that would be a really great idea. If we've got all these loose ends, it's a mess.
Yep.
And if we need to bring somebody in temporarily or pay overtime or deputize somebody, we need to get this all cleared up
Mr. President,
and put behind us.
are
Yes.
you looking to have those open permits completed in the 30 days?
No, to be
Okay.
addressed, because some of them that might take more than 30
Mhm.
days. You gotta hire a contractor, you have to come up with a scope of work and you have to figure out how you're gonna pay for it. But what I'd like is, in 30 days, I'd like to see an action plan that that our town's inspectors and the fairgrounds have worked out so that there's no more of this crap.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Great idea. I understand the permits, some of them aren't yours, but some of the photographs that I did see, unfortunately, the infrastructure you guys own. And when I looked at the pictures, there's no covers to the electrical panel. There's all rodent droppings and acorns and whatnot. You own that infrastructure. So I think it would be good for all three inspectors to walk through and see what the modifications and updates to this infrastructure has to be.
We're not looking for a gotcha, we're looking for a solution.
I realize that the fairgrounds, if there is significant work to be done,
Right,
is not gonna do it in a short amount of
no,
time.
but
It's
that
gonna
we
take
just,
a
I
number
just
of
want to
years.
see a plan.
It's
a
gonna
plan.
take a plan, it's gonna take a number of years, and whatever guidance that we give them to get there. And we're not talking everything overnight. And we're not
Right.
even talking everything in 5 years.
Right.
But we have to.
Well, it's
be
an
diligent.
ongoing, it's an ongoing process, but the town needs to be a partner with the fairgrounds because the fairgrounds has been good to the town for a long time. That's my 2 cents. I don't know if,
So, Mr. President, so that means the job performance, it was specifically put on the agenda for a reason. That's a moot issue because with your resolution that we all get together and they correct these things amenably, then this is a moot issue.
well, then it proves that we're working together and there's not a personality
Good,
issue anymore.
good.
Mr. President,
Yes,
to me, it wouldn't be a moot issue because we have him on probation probably till the end of the year. So we'll just have to agree to disagree on that one.
And at this point, what I'm looking for is a solution, not a termination, not a chop, bam kind of thing. I don't want to harm the fairgrounds by any means, by any way, shape, or form. I want to improve what seems to be a very poor communication between the town and the fairgrounds. So,
And I really appreciate if we could have a meaningful discussion on the continued miscommunications, because like, I just feel like now we're cutting the meeting short and I'm not having an opportunity to share how I feel about the miscommunications, because it's just going to open another can of worms. We have members of the audience who'd like to speak. So respectfully, I really think that we should just have a job performance of Jeffrey Valencourt within 30 days.
or
You know,
at the
no,
next
no,
meeting
I already
after.
talked about this, so it's moot. You know what I mean? An open, real discussion about the job performance for an employee who is still on probation. And I
That's what-
definitely appreciate your,
That's what I propose.
I definitely also would like to say I appreciate you coming to the table with solutions to make sure they can work it out together. Although maybe it should just kind of, like, again, now I'm getting into job performance. So I'd really appreciate if we could continue this discussion to another day.
Right, I agree. And at this point,
Thank you.
I'm looking for a motion to put into action the
Right.
30-day plan to come up with,
I don't think you
But,
can vote on that.
no. Okay, so then I'd like to put that on the agenda.
I think you can vote
for the
on a
5th.
motion to continue this meeting to another date.
Right,
Motion to continue this meeting to another date.
Well, I'd rather go for the 30 days. I like that.
but,
I
but,
think-
but we can't, so we're gonna, what I'd like to do is put it on the agenda as new business for the 5th, for our meeting on the 5th.
It's too late. The agenda is already finished, I believe.
Our items were after being an hour ago. So I agree with the 30 days, but I want to keep my motion open because scheduling conflicts, you know what I mean? So just a motion to continue to a future date would benefit all of us so we can work
That's
together
why I
to find a
said
new
it.
date. Right. And that's why I
Okay,
made it.
so let's make a motion to continue to the 5th.
I made the motion. You can second.
I can't.
I don't think you can do that.
Okay.
That agenda's already finished.
Okay,
Agenda deadline.
Yeah.
No,
It's-
September
it's
19th.
now it's, and now it's 5 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock
19th.
somewhere.
Aaron, get in your car and drive to a different.
Can we just make an announcement? There's a lot of people here for the workshop. So,
Right.
and then unfortunately, I'm getting emails because of different Zoom code that are expecting.
Right.
So I'm hoping that those that are waiting.
I just want to get this motion put to bed. Make a
September
motion
19th
to
is the
adjourn.
Next agenda.
Right.
It sounds like it didn't have a second, which is fine. I'll just put it in writing and request it to be on the agenda, I guess. I don't know how else to handle it.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to continue this to a later date and to adjourn.
Mr. President.
I'll second
I'd
that.
like. No, motion hasn't been made yet.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to continue this to the September, what meeting, Aaron, is the date, second meeting in September?
19th.
September 19th, that all parties will get together and resolve this issue. And the issue of Mr. Valencourt being terminated is a moot issue.
I can't go with it, making it a moot issue until that day.
I think the only item we can continue is the agenda items we have posted on
Right.
this agenda.
Well, excuse me, Mr. President, in a sign of good faith to have the parties come together, one party can't have this still over their head, this cloud over their
And
head.
unfortunately,
It has to
both
be-
parties have clouds over their heads right now, and both parties are not happy right now.
Mr. President,
So we need to continue this so that we can have the other meeting that these people showed up to attend.
Mr. President,
Yes.
in my opinion, the cloud's gonna be there either way, because again, we put them on probation until probably the end of the year, if I'm remembering the dates correctly, because it was in June. Oh, yeah, early December. So if my motion to continue this item is not going to get a second,
I
One
can
more.
second it. I think legally,
well, then I'll just
Can
make
I
a motion
second
to
this?
adjourn and we'll leave unfulfilled that with it.
I second that. How do you vote?
Second, what, I'm sorry.
If I do a motion to adjourn, I can still submit a request to talk about Jeffrey Valencourt's job performance on a future agenda.
I got that, but Mark, I
So,
didn't know what you.
I did a
were
motion
seconding.
to adjourn.
Adjournment?
I'm seconding the adjournment.
All right, I second the motion. Oh, you adjourn.
How do you vote? Yes?
What are you voting on? There.
Yes.
Adjourn.
Adjourn? Thank you, yes.
Adjourned.